Hi YouTube, this is my second video in my new and improved YouTube channel. Today I would like to talk to you about my Dune book collection. I loved the Dune series when I first started reading them. I was introduced to Dune through the video games. Dune 2000 in particular, released in, I believe it was 1998, alongside Command & Conquer. Anyway, I was introduced to Dune through the video games, and then I found book 3 and 4, interestingly enough, in my parents' library. As a kid, Dune was my favorite. I think they called him space opera. Like the likes of Asimov's Foundation series, Star Trek, and Star Wars. So it was my favorite multi-planet civilization narratives. I read all of the original 6 and many, but not all, of the newer Dune books by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. When they initially came out, a lot of the fans hated them. A lot of the original fans hated them. Fans of the original 6 books written by Frank Herbert absolutely hated them. The same way the prequels of Star Wars were hated. And I thought, well, that's just a passing phase. We all have different tastes, right? It's just it's originalists. Like some hardcore Star Wars fans will say, the first 3 films and that's it. Everything else is Star Wars related, doesn't exist. Just those 3 films. The crowning moment was I Am Your Father, and that's it. Everything else doesn't count. So I just dismissed all of those people, all those originalists saying how bad the newer books are, as haters, Anyway, I loved the Dune video game, and I was disappointed to learn that House Ordos, a faction in the game, is not what they call canon. So I wrote my own fan fiction about House Ordos. Anyway, like I said, Dune was one of my favorite science fiction franchises, and as a kid, I saw, as a young teenager, I saw the world of Dune in today's world, in the contemporary. So I thought, spice melange represents petroleum, represents oil and other precious substances, including water. But primarily oil, because where do we get the oil from? The Middle East. And what is the Middle East known for? Deserts. So a desert planet that produces the spice melange. And so it is such a valuable substance. Without it, the empire and all of human civilization will fall apart. So I saw that. So and I also know the Spacing Guild represents airlines, represents the airline industry, because only a very small handful of companies control all of air travel. Airbus, Boeing, and a few other small companies. So they represented the Spacing Guild that need the spice melange to navigate their ships. And in order for airplanes to take off, we need petroleum. There are very few non-petroleum powered airplanes, to my knowledge, even today. So as a kid, every time I got on an airplane, and this is true, I imagine myself traveling from one planet within the Dune universe to the next, because many of the landscapes in all the planets represent different geographical regions of the world. So that was fun. my escapism and my life in the real world overlapped a little bit. Anyway, that's just my fond memories of Dune. So I saw a lot of the contemporary world in Dune, in the Dune universe. One thing I didn't like about the Dune universe was the Bene Gesserit sisterhood. A lot of people clung on to that. Oh, that's feminism. That's female empowerment, which is which a lot of people like to push these days. The message, so to speak. And it's not that I'm against it. I'm just not a social justice warrior, as much as some others people here on BookTube are. But anyway, I did not like the Bene Gesserit because of their use of eugenics and their so-called breeding program. That's a long story that I cannot dive deep into at the moment in this video. So I'm going to show you my Dune book collection, and then I'm going to tell you why I'm not buying any more new Dune books. The obvious answer is, after COVID struck, getting to the bookstores weren't as easy as they used to be. But the thing is, after a certain point, I stopped going to the bookstores to find the newer books. So it was long before COVID. But now with COVID, I couldn't buy those books even if I wanted to. Unless, of course, I go to Amazon, which takes forever for the books to arrive. No instant gratification. Alright, let's begin. So I'm going to show you the original 6. I have all of them. Let me just lay them out here for you. So I have the original Dune by Frank Herbert. I rebound some of these books, by the way. I have Dune Messiah. I have Children of Dune. Excuse me. I have God Emperor of Dune. I have Heretics of Dune. And I have Chapter House Dune, which incidentally was published in the year of my birth. Then I started reading the newer ones, starting in 1999, the books written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. At first I liked them a lot, but then the quality of the books started to deteriorate. And they were still tolerable. I enjoyed them to an extent. I'm not the harshest critic of Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, but the quality of the books took a nosedive over time. So I stopped buying the books because of the horrible ending of Sandworms of Dune. So I only got up to Sandworms of Dune, published 2007. Yes, I believe it was 2007. After Sandworms of Dune, I couldn't read any more of it. So I did buy the House series, House Atreides, House Harkonnen, and House Carino. I did buy the Butlerian Jihad series, Butlerian Jihad, the Machine Crusade, and the Battle of Corrin. These books with the thinking machines, they didn't provide a very satisfactory origin story to many of the institutions within Dune, and the origins of the Dune universe. It wasn't very satisfactory explanation. In hindsight, I don't like those books, but at the time, I enjoyed them. They were easy to read, they were campy fun. But in hindsight, I don't like them. The House series, I'm a little bit more forgiving, and I still enjoy them to a degree. Then, of course, I read Hunters of Dune. The title is starting to fade. And Sandworms of Dune. Sandworms of Dune, I was tempted just to throw this book out the window in frustration and anger. Then I have The Road to Dune, which is an interesting collection of deleted scenes and all kinds of bonus material from Frank Herbert's notes, and a collection of short stories. So it's a collection of Dune-related stuff. And there are 4 short stories in here, all of which I read. and some deleted scenes, and a novella, which was like an earlier version of Dune, but where is the outline of this earlier version? They don't have it. But yeah, credit where credit is due for to Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson for publishing this, because it enriched my Dune experience. And with the re-release of the new Dune movie, by the way, I watched I watched the original Dune film along with several other TV spin-off miniseries. The new Dune film has brought back the Dune franchise to its original roots, and I see a ton of booktubers talking about Dune now. So, the Dune books I don't have at this point are the Dune Encyclopedia, which was a non-canonical book published in the latter 80s, which was the only reference in literature to House Ordos before my fanfiction on them. Then there was Paul of Dune and Winds of Dune, these books that take place in between books. Yeah, I didn't bother after Sandworms of Dune. Then, of course, there's the Great School series, the Sisterhood of Dune, the Mentats of Dune, the Navigators of Dune, and then there's a new series I'm not aware of: Dune, the Duke of Caladan, Dune, the Lady of Caladan, and Dune, the Heir of Caladan. So the Caladan series. I didn't hear about it until very, very recently, and I have no interest in reading those books. But then Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson did something dastardly. The completist in me, the one who wants all Dune literature in his collection, has to buy a ton of magazines that I don't subscribe to get these books. And they also published Sea Child in a later edition of The Road to Dune. So they tried to get me to buy this book twice. Those bastards. Anyway, I have already read A Whisper of Caladan Seas, Hunting Harkonnens, Whipping Mech, and The Faces of a Martyr, because they were all in my copy of The Road to Dune. And here are a bunch of Dune short stories that I didn't have. There was one by Frank Herbert called The Road to Dune, which was like a travel guide for pilgrims on Arrakis. Then there was other books like Sea Child, Treasure in the Sand, Wedding Silk, Red Plague, The Waters of Canley, Blood of the Sadukar, and Dune, The Edge of a Crysknife. I just, in rapid succession, read you a whole bunch of short stories that they published in magazines that I do not subscribe to. Anyway, I hope my talking is relatively coherent, and I've given you all of my thoughts, general thoughts on Dune, and showed you my collection, etc., etc. I hope this is a satisfactory discussion on the Dune series. Okay, goodbye.